Have you heard of the Africa Climate Summit? Do you know what it's all about? On this video, I'm going to break down for you the 4 objectives of why it's happening and what you need to know about it. My name is Stella Bogonko, CEO of Jacob's Ladder, and this is Green Jobs Africa. So in our last video, we covered the broader reasons, the history of the summit, the journey to where we are right now, and what you can anticipate in the next couple of days in the Africa Climate Summit that is holding on the 4th of September to the 6th of September in Nairobi, Kenya. On this video, we're going to break down the objectives or the outcomes that you should expect out of this particular summit. So the very first objective is the African Leaders Nairobi Declaration, which is basically a broad framework of summarizing the essence of the summit and the outcomes of the summit in terms of exactly what has been agreed on. And this declaration is a document that's going to be summarizing the aspirations, the desires, and the positions of the African leaders. If you did not watch my last video, that would help you to understand exactly why the summit is happening, who is coming, what exactly is going to be discussed, what are some of the thematic areas that are going to be covered, and because that's going to be important for you to understand the African Leaders Nairobi Declaration. And so the essence or the objective is, let's come up with a document that can be used as the blueprint. Think of it of a manuscript, for example, the thing that we're going to be referencing to say this is the direction that the continent is going to take as far as climate is concerned. It's going to cover areas like energy. What is the position of Africa when it comes to energy, for example? We did speak in our last video about some of the challenges that are there around the reason why we need to have a conversation around energy transition in Africa. Some countries have already moved on in terms of renewable energy, like Kenya. Our grid, like we said, is 92% renewable, but other countries like South Africa are largely coal dependent in terms of their energy. So how do we begin to have a common position as an African continent? And that's part of the declaration, which is, we may not be there right now, but where do we see ourselves in the next couple of years? And what's the journey to that position looking like for the African continent? What is our position around climate smart agriculture? We do have large and vast lands that are arable. How do we leverage that resource to be able to be food secure, for example? How do we begin to empower our young people to actively and meaningfully engage in the agricultural sector? And it would capture probably areas like the carbon markets. And if you haven't heard of the carbon markets, we will definitely do an episode on that because it's one of the biggest areas when it comes to climate. In fact, everything that's done around climate is geared towards decarbonization, which means reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that means that it's done through different ways. There's some things that are called nature-based solutions. There's carbon removals in terms of the different methodologies of doing decarbonization or carbon removals. But that's an area that we're going to cover in a subsequent episode, so stay tuned for that. The third area that's going to be covered in the African Leaders Nairobi Declaration is the carbon markets. Now, that's a dicey one because it's basically the summary of why we do everything that we do in the climate space to decarbonize. And there are different ways of doing that. Don't worry about the jargon or the methodology. We'll definitely give you a lot of information on that particular topic in subsequent episodes to come. But there is a reason why Africa needs to have a common voice when it comes to the carbon markets. And let me break it down for you. There are 2 carbon markets. There's the voluntary carbon markets, and then there's the compliance carbon markets. Voluntary carbon markets is basically, I come to you and I tell you whatever price I want to give you for your credits, carbon credits. This is what I'm offering, and you just accept, or that's basically what the offer is in the market. But in the compliance carbon markets, they get a lot more value. And at the moment, Africa, and for the most part, the global south countries do not participate at the compliance market. And so this is one of the reasons why the summit will be discussing how can the globe or the world at large open up the carbon markets conversation to African nations as well, so that we are not being left to be offered whatever price is being given by whoever comes to offer it to us. So like I said, we're going to break that down further in a different episode. As you can see, there are many issues, and most of them are skewed negatively towards the African side or towards the global south. And that's why the summit then provides a great opportunity to say, we as Africans are coming together to say, this is our position on energy. This is our position on climate smart agriculture. This is our position on carbon markets. And this is how we're going to roll it out. Not necessarily dependent on other people, but this is how we intend to engage with the other nations at the global stage. So as you can see, there's so many areas that need to be covered, and there are reasons why we need to have this summit. And I must again congratulate the President of Kenya for leading this. This is what leadership is all about. And the African Union, of course, for coming on board and co-hosting the event. This conversation is timely, and it is definitely needful for African nations to be able to have a common position, leverage on the economies of scales to say, this is what we want as an African continent, and this is what we want as the developing countries and the global south on various issues like I've mentioned, the carbon markets, energy, climate smart agriculture, and many others. And so the declaration, which is going to be read on the last day of the summit, which is the 6th of September, is going to be the roadmap through which the conversations are going to be held in the subsequent meetings that are going to be held. The G20 that's coming up, the COP28 that's going to be held in Dubai at the end of the year, and the subsequent other meetings, the UN General Assembly that's happening also in September. It's basically going to be our manifesto as a country or as a continent to say, this is our position. I hope that helps you. I hope that enlightens you a bit more to know one of the objectives, which is the African Leaders Nairobi Declaration is one of the main reasons why this summit is happening. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you've been a little bit more enlightened on the first objective of the summit. Stay tuned, and if you have any questions, clarifications, contributions, please feel free to share them on the comment sections below and to hang out with us using our social media handles or the email address that we provided below. In the next video, I'm going to be breaking down for you the second objective, which is the pathway to a new global finance pact. And that should be interesting, especially for those of us who are wondering, where is all this money going to? When we're talking about investments in Africa or when it comes to climate, where is that money and where is it going to? I'm going to be sharing more on that with you. My name is Stella Bogonko, CEO of Jacob's Ladder Africa, and this is Green Jobs Africa.